Irene Lidval for Secret to Women's Success, episode number 7. And today we are going to talk about how I made my first million and why it's so important to make a decision and to follow your gut and the choices you make in life. Maybe not always the best for you. If you're a people pleaser, if you feel that you are responsible for other people, which I did suffer from severely when I was younger, I thought I had to make other people happy. And I thought it was my job to look after other people as well and not look after myself. So this is something that it's really close to my heart, because if we do not have a vision for our life of how we want it to look like, who will? Who will? And what does success look like for you? It might not look the same as it does for me, but I have to tell you, to make a decision and to make choices that are for you are so crucial. It's so important. I can't stress this enough. And I know that younger women, we believe that life should be easy, and we very often make decisions based upon what other people think, not what we really want. And I was in my 40s when I made a huge mistake. Because after I left my millionaire boyfriend, I met a very charming fashion photographer in New York. And as it would show, he was used to living off women, and he hardly ever worked. He was the classic con man in every aspect. Can you believe it? I took my con man boyfriend back after I had left him in New York and moved back to Sweden after September 11, 2001. That's where I should have left him. He convinced me that he wanted to come for a 4-week holiday to Sweden, as he loved me and I was the one for him. Now, I wanted to believe that. I really did. But somewhere inside was this really what I wanted? Well, I did want to be loved, and I did like the idea of being the one for him. But did I really believe it? No, I didn't. But anyhow, he was only coming for 4 weeks vacation, right? So how bad can it be? Yeah, I almost died when I saw him coming through the airport security with lock, stock and barrel. He had 2 trolleys with boxes, and he had stapled them on top of each other so I couldn't see him. And he was the last one to come through, and I had a very bad feeling in my stomach. I felt like I wanted to vomit. I should have made myself invisible and left him right there. And as I said, I felt sick to my stomach. But did I listen to my gut feeling? No, I did not. He moved in. He was not there for 4 weeks holiday. He moved in. And it was so embarrassing because I was living with my mother. And I had her sewing room as my room. And I only had a single bed in there. And my mother took one look at him and she said to me, "My godfather, you have really dragged the cat in, haven't you?" And she said to me, "A man who does what he has done to you is not a man." And she said, "You have to figure this one out. I am leaving and you have to pay the rent." At that moment, I did not have a job. And I certainly couldn't afford to stay and support him as well. But I had no choice. I didn't know how to get rid of him. He was there. So I worked 2 jobs to support us while he slept most of the days. And you can just imagine what it did to my relationship with my mother. She was so angry with me, and I was angry with her, and I was angry with him, and he was angry with me, and he was angry with Mom, and it was just horrible. But I worked as much as I could outside all day, and at night I was teaching him my business as I was struggling supporting 2 people on my own. We were living in my mother's apartment, and it was a very big apartment, and I could not afford to stay there. And it was so hard for me to find something for us to live in, because I had not lived in Sweden for 13 years, and I hadn't paid my taxes in Sweden because I had paid my taxes in America. And because I didn't have any tax record, I did not qualify as a renter. Now, you would think that I would have given up on everything and thrown the towel in and blamed him and blamed Mom and blamed everybody for the situation I was in. But I tell you this, I could only blame myself. And I did blame myself for it. And I did do whatever I could to rectify the situation. And I finally found a second-hand apartment, a sublet, and we moved. And on the day of the move, my conman boyfriend decided that he was going to England because he had a project that he needed to do with his ex-wife. So his ex-wife had paid for him to go to England, and I was left on my own to move to our new apartment. We had no furniture, we had nothing, but I had very good friends, and again they came to my rescue, and I borrowed furniture from my friends, and we decorated the new apartment, and it looked fabulous. And after a week, my boyfriend returned to Sweden, and I continued working, running around like a hot woman's breakfast to make money. And I was actually making quite a lot of money working on the outside. Now, it just happened to show that the con man and I, we were quite compatible in business, because he had skills that I did not possess. So as a fashion photographer, he could do incredible photographies and displays and websites, and he was good at admin, and I did all the cold calling, and we actually started living a really good life because things were happening. And in the beginning it was really hard for me to support us, but after 3 months the banks offered us loans and money that we didn't need anymore. Because when we started out, I had gone to the banks and asked if they could lend us some money, and it was an absolutely no. But after 3 months, they could see that we were making good money, and it was not just good money, we were making terrific money. And we were working 24/7, we took turn. And I have to admit, we did have a lot of fun too, playing golf and working and traveling and going to the south of France and Italy and knocking on manufacturers' doors and taking on positions of stock lots, and we traded stock lots of fashion brands with America, and it was fantastic. And then we met a couple in Italy. They were English, and she was involved with home shopping network in England, and we started working with them, and she opened the doors for us. So we got 3 accounts. We TV shopping networks in England. And it was then when things really started to take off for us. And life was really good, really, really good. And I was in charge of the money because it was my business. And this is the point I want to make to you guys. When you have a business, make sure it's yours. Have everything in writing. Have a contract with a person like your boyfriend or your partner or your family member or friend or whatever it is that you decide to work together with. Make sure you have a contract and have a lawyer draw up the contract. I didn't do that because it just happened. Things just happened, and it happened very quickly. So after 6 months, we were creaming it. We were selling like crazy. We had £78,000 weeks of what we were selling. And little did we expect that it would stop, or I didn't believe it would stop, because things were just happening so quickly. Now, one day my boyfriend decided that he wanted to go home to Australia and visit his son. And I agreed that we could do that because we had enough money, and we worked very well online as well, and we had set up a system. So we had a guy in Italy that shipped out to England, and we had a warehouse in England where they put labels on everything and shipped out to the shopping network TV warehouses. So things were set up really well. So we decided we can go to Australia for 3 months. On the way over, we did a stopover in Vancouver and visited one of our biggest clients in Vancouver. And then we continued to Fiji. And I remember when we were waiting for our luggage in Fiji, I went online in the free Wi-Fi office they had in Fiji and in Nandi. And I actually made a deal with somebody in England and sold for £3,000 while we were waiting for our bags. Now, that is something that we all would like to have, to thrive and to strive to get a business that actually is possible to work from anywhere and making lots of money. Life was good. And we ended up in Australia. And after 3 months, I did say to my boyfriend that we should go back to Sweden because, you know, we stayed for 3 months. He then dropped the bomb on me saying, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back to Sweden. I want to stay here. I was gobsmacked. I had no idea that he had planned this all along. He wanted to go home on my bill, and he wanted me to come with, so I would pay for everything. And after the 3 months, he actually moved in with his sister, and I went back to Sweden. I was devastated, absolutely devastated. Now, this is, what do you do in a situation like this? I had lost my partner, and it was horrible because I relied upon him and his photographies and changes that he made. He was doing all the admin work while I did the cold calling and the selling. And all of a sudden, half of the business was gone. And for me to find somebody who could take his place would take both time and effort. And I realized I just needed to start making money again. And although I got the business back on its feet again and was making good profits, I felt like a fish out of water living in Sweden, as I didn't like the cold, the rain, and the darkness of the winters. I started looking for another country where I could hang my hat. It was one of 3 options: going back to America, Canada, or Australia. And after 6 months, I packed up and moved to Australia, as I had fallen in love with the country and made some friends while there before. What also attracted me to Australia was not only cheap golf, but the social safety net, with clubs for sport and good Medicare schemes. So different from the United States, where you have to be rich to grow old. In Sweden, we have great safety net and Medicare, but the older people in Sweden sit in their apartment and don't dare go outside as the winter arrives for 9 months. So I decided to move to Australia. And almost the moment I set foot in Australian soil, my former boyfriend was like a rat up a drain pipe, begging me to take him back. I felt sorry for him because he was living with his sister, and I did let him move in with me. Big mistake. After a year, I had enough of him and his endless asking for money. I asked him to move out. He refused. He said he didn't want us to split up. And if I wanted to leave, I could do so, but he was staying put and I could not take anything with me. Things I had brought with me from Sweden and things I had bought while in Australia. He asked me if we could split the car between the two of us. And I thought that if we could continue working together, then we could do that. That was another big mistake. He actually took the car and claimed it as his. And he found another girlfriend and she moved in to my apartment with my things. And it was just horrible. And he had taken copies of my credit cards and he was ordering stuff over the phone in my name. And it became absolutely horrendous for me. But who was at fault here? Even though you might think that I was not at fault, I was. It was my fault. I had made really bad choices. Do you see how I could have blamed him? Well, he's still an asshole. But it was still all my bad choices and decision that had left me where I was. Do you see that now? So making a decision. I made the decision to get away from my conman boyfriend. And I did. For the second time in my life, I just walked away. And I had so much in debt after him. And I was actually, took me 10 years to pay off all of his debt. And some of it was wiped out because I contacted a lawyer. And I tried to take him to court, but was told by the magistrate that they were sympathetic with me. But as I was living in Australia and I was the breadwinner and they were considering us married according to the Australian law, I was responsible for him. Even after he'd spent all the money and I had none left, I was still considered the breadwinner, and the magistrate told me that I was lucky that he didn't take me for alimony. After I had lost my business, my dignity and my home, I took on a part-time job and found a lovely apartment and a student who needed a room. I had totally lost my confidence and gave up on myself. And I took a job as a medical receptionist for $20 an hour. What a joke. What was I doing? I was in my 50s and I was living the statistics due to my really bad decisions. How did I end up here? Dead broke and with massive debt that wasn't mine. I crawled in under a rock and went home to Sweden to lick my wounds and figure out what I was doing. I decided to come back to Australia, determined to make it a success. Little did I know that I was in for the biggest hurdle of my life. And that was menopause. And that was a story in itself. But After 2 years of stress and hard work for hardly any money, I made a decision to walk out from my dead-end job. I've just had enough. I could not take it anymore. Maybe not the smartest things to do, but I had to do something or I was going to die. And I moved in with my then boyfriend, still boyfriend, and I thought that I would be able to get another job easily. But if you are in your 50s, it's not the easiest way. So I didn't get another job, not a job that I actually felt would do me justice. So I continued to educate myself and slowly started to gain my self-confidence back. My business took off and life started looking really good again, because I realized that I could not get a job to support myself in Australia or anywhere else, not at 50. And maybe I was unemployable because I've had so many businesses, and I really wanted to have my own business again. So that's what I did. And I made new friends that were on the same journey as I had embarked on as an entrepreneur. And you have to make a decision about your life too. How do you want to live? It's up to you. Do you want to live by default and just survive like I did there for a while? Or live it by your own design? It can be scary, but as my mum said to me once, she said, you will never be able to make good money if you don't work for yourself. So I started designing my life when I walked out for the third time. When are you going to start? You have to decide how you want to live. Maybe you are now saying, well, you don't know my circumstances, and you're right, I don't. And every situation is different. But I can tell you that every situation stays the same if you don't do anything about it. You only have to make a choice for change to happen. Only you can make the choice and change. Or you can decide to continue living the way you have been living. You are in control of your life, no one else. You can keep on talking about the horrible things in your life, or you can make a choice to change and make it better. It is entirely up to you and nobody else. Are you ready to live a life according to blame and excuses, or will you dare to win and live your life by design? And by that, I hope you have enjoyed listening to this episode number 7. And if you have somebody who needs to hear this, please forward this to that person, and hopefully that will change their lives. And again, subscribe, like, and stay tuned for our next episode next week. So far, have a wonderful weekend. This is Irene Lidwall for Secret to Women's Success, episode number 7. Bye!